The Mighty Pen Project has expanded from stories and classes to things like this podcast, as well as a one-act play festival. The one-act play festival is called War in Pieces. And every year we select 4 veteran writers and work with them to turn their plays into professionally performed one-act stage plays. We've had great success with that. The stories have been immensely powerful, and it's a program that the Virginia War Memorial here, in conjunction with local Richmond theater companies, that we're continuing. I'm joined in the studio right now by David Watkins, a good friend to me, and I will say one of the most talented people I've met. Come on, dude, what can you not do? What can you not do?
I cannot play Yahtzee.
Stymied. I'll move on from that. But David was an actor in the last round of War in Pieces plays, a play by Phillip Trezza called God of Baghdad. It was essentially a one-man play portrayed by David Watkins. Phil Trezza spent 14 years in the United States Army as a combat medic. His story, God of Baghdad, is about an instance in Baghdad when he was the only medical personnel available to a street corner where an IED blew up. According to Phil, there was mass casualties everywhere. It was, as you can imagine, a horrific scene, and he was alone there as the medical personnel, and the decisions he made were decisions of life and death. And this is the play that Phil Trezza wrote for us. The star of that play is in the studio with me right now, David Watkins. After David and I talk a bit to set the stage for our listeners, you will hear David's one-man read of the play with Phil Trezza doing the radio transmission work. And then we'll be joined in the studio by Phil and me and David and Phil, who have become good friends. We'll talk about the play and Phil's experience of writing it, as well as David's experience of being in it. But David, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Hello to the virtual world.
Let's talk about God of Baghdad. Let's set the stage for the audience. So what they're going to hear is your voice. They don't get to see your gesticulations. They don't get to see your physical presence. Walk my audience here through what is on this stage and what the physical play looked like so that when they hear it, they can visualize.
Certainly. So it starts with Phil, the soldier, coming into a psychiatrist's office. And so what you see when the lights go up is Phil sitting right beside the psychiatrist. Now, the psychiatrist is there not paying too much attention, just kind of listening, writing on a clipboard of sorts. And she asks the question off screen, I guess, of, have you slept? Just a general question. But you don't hear that. What you hear is the response where I'm playing Phil, and it starts with him saying, I didn't sleep well last night. So he starts going into a very passionate but not too emotional recurrence of what he's going through in the time. And then he starts getting into what happened in Baghdad as far as bombs going off and just illustrating this. And then something triggers in him to go back into what it really was. And so while he's talking to the psychiatrist, he then goes into, I guess you would say, a sort of trance-like, and goes back to the mass casualty and seeing the explosion and then calling ahead and them giving him the coordinates. And then when he gets there, he's the only medic. It's such a crazy, for me, story, not being in the armed forces, to even have read this the first time. And then after he goes through this, it switches almost to an operatic, poetic moment of him recalling, almost stepping out of himself, saying, how can someone do this? I'm the only person here. I'm responsible for who lives and who dies. And that's where the term, I'm literally the God of Baghdad right now. And then it ends with him back in the seat next to the psychiatrist, just going back over and replaying all of that and asking that, one question, you wonder what days like this is doing to you.
There's a long passage in the middle of the play where you, as Phil Trezza, are talking to other soldiers. In the facts of the play, Phil was there with his squad, but they weren't medics.
Right.
And he was put in a position of having to shout things to them, how to use a tourniquet, how to find a wound, how to find an exit wound. And in the play, you treated the audience like that squad. There's a long passage in there where you're shouting, and in the play, you're shouting at the audience.
Right.
Sounds brilliant. Who directed this?
I don't know. I think it was some guy out of Alaska. came, and he was a little short guy too, you know. No, this was directed by the improbable David Robbins. I think that's how you say his name. But yes, it was you.
It's me. Is also, I'd like to know the first play I ever directed.
The first play.
And I had you.
You did have
I
me.
had you.
And I had you.
Aw.
I think it was a great time, even talking to the audience, because reading it the first time, God bless my dad, but he's a Navy veteran, served in Vietnam, but he's never talked about it. I've got an uncle I never met who, God rest his soul, he was killed in Vietnam, and he was 20, 21. He was actually my mother's twin brother. His name was Marvin. I went to Washington, D.C. He's on the monument. It's really cool. And my nephew is now in the Navy. He's stationed in Japan, which is great. So you would think I'm from a military family, but there's never been any discussion of any of that. So getting something like this and reading it, and then you giving the direction that we're going to talk to the audience, I was coaching myself, like, how would I say this to me? Because I'm green as far as I didn't know what a tourniquet was. I'm from the suburbs. I'm an actor, musician. Listen. So I think it was great even watching the eyes of people light up when I had a chance to tell them, put the tourniquet here, strap it high, strap it tight. Like, and we're in the field of this is what you do, no questions asked. I think it's brilliant. And even the vets that were there, just seeing the appreciation of, and then getting Phil's approval, like that really made me know, okay, we're doing something great. So just seeing them light up and seeing that direction to them was amazing. And you should give yourself a pat on the back for that.
Thank you.
The only
my dad and mom were both at Pearl Harbor.
Mm.
And the only time I ever thought was wise enough to ask my father a question, I said, what was that like? And he said, well, Sunday morning, December 7th, I walked outside of my house and I bent down to pick up my newspaper and my house went over my head. And that was all he could describe was some bomb blew up his house while he was out picking up his newspaper.
Oh my God.
And as he bent over, he looked up and he saw shards of his shack flying over his head. And that was it. That was it. He lived another 35 years of my life, and that's all I could get out of him.
Wow.
So that's what we're doing here. We're taking these veteran stories and telling them.
I think it's brilliant too, especially for someone like in my position who doesn't have a lot of education with what really goes on in war times or even in military in general. Like one of my best friends, he's been in the Army since we were in high school. They shipped him out to Hawaii or something. And I always mess with him, because he's taking me to the base and I've met a lot of people, but just not having the knowledge of this is what really goes on. So for me, just watching these plays and being a part of it, have a more appreciation of, when they have the VA and the vets and all of the issues or whatnot that they have. I have much greater appreciation because now I really know, like, even me just reading Phil's, just that one section, it was hard for me to live with it. And I'm just reading it. So I can only imagine, and I have way more appreciation, just the life that you have to live after the fact.
You and Phil have become friends over this.
Friends?
He thinks you're his friend.
I don't know.
He's going to hear this.
He knows how to use rifles and stuff. I don't know. I just play guitar. I don't know. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, he not only knows how to use rifles, he knows how to fix you after he uses
right.
14-year combat medic.
He knows where to hit you, and then, you can walk.
Right. All right. So look, thank you, David. We're going to now hear your remarkable reading of God of Baghdad, written by Phil Trezza.
Thank you. I didn't sleep much last night. I don't sleep much at all. War whispers to me. It hisses. It calls. I can hear it. I can feel it. The buzzing of flies. Swarming, racked bodies with no life in their eyes. Just put them in a bag and put them on a truck, man. I'm the medic. I'm the coroner. I'm the soldier, man. Fuck. The first dead guy I ever saw. He had a caterpillar mustache and a round in his skull. He was bloated. He was glossy in the sun. It got hotter. They dumped him in a field where the kids play soccer. Words of my platoon mates' wives come to me at night. And they say, bring 'em back, Doc. bring them back, all right? You know, when a bomb goes off in a Baghdad street, you see it first, and then you hear it. In the dust, it rides the shockwaves before it hits you in the chest. Raider 7, this is Raider 4, Doc. Hey, you got a location on that explosion? Over?
Raider 4, Doc, roger. Explosion vicinity 3 blocks to your east. The corner by the mechanic shop.
Raider 7, this is 4, Doc. Roger. Any friendlies hit?
4, Doc, this is Raider 7. Negative. Does not appear coalition forces were hit. Vehicle-borne IED with likely civilian casualties. We're the only platoon out here. That means you're the only medic. We'll help you all we can. Just show us what to do, Doc. Over.
Raider 7, Raider 4, Doc. Roger. Let's get over there. Set a cordon. Over.
4, Doc, this is Raider 7. Roger. We got your back. We'll provide a perimeter and try to help triage. Iraqi police are headed your way. They'll provide support and casualty transport. Over.
Raider 7, Raider 4, Doc. Make sure the cops don't load casualties until I evaluate. I don't want anyone bleeding out on the way to the hospital. Over.
4, Doc, this is Raider 7. Roger. Let's move.
Roger, moving. Breathe. Just fucking breathe. Freak out later. Hey, Raider 7, this is 4, Doc. Look, I can't see shit. Dust is everywhere. Are you on scene yet? Over. Raider 7, copy. How could anyone play such fury and hate in a car on the corner where the street kids play? Pink and red blood, limbs, skin, and brains, wads of wet clothes with human remains. Bits of the building hit by the blast, mixed in with pieces of humans are cast across a wrecked street. As far as I can see, my platoon and the crowd, they calling for me. See, out here, I'm everything. I'm the good and I'm the bad. Who lives and who dies. I'm the god of Baghdad. Jesus, Mama, what happened? Hey, Mama, you remember when you took me up there? Oh, Mama, I do, like it was yesterday. The elevator ride was so long. Oh, I think I got sick. Maybe I was nervous or I was excited. I just couldn't wait to get to the top. And then when we finally looked over, the city on a bright sunny day, the haze on the horizon, on top of the world. You know, nothing has ever made me feel so big and small at the same time. It's burning, Mama. I gotta go.
Raider 4, Doc, this is Raider 7. We're arriving at the blast site time now. Setting up a cordon. Are you on site? Over.
Raider 7, 4, Doc. Yeah, I see you. Okay, listen up. When evaluating and triaging, I need you to make sure they're alive. First thing you do, stop any major bleeding. Right? Tourniquets. If the limb's missing or the bleeding is bad, put a tourniquet on it, strap it high, strap it tight on the bone, arms, or legs. All right, let's go. All right, look. Once you get it on, let me know. I'll evaluate. If the bleed's in an area that you can't get a tourniquet, look, pack it with gauze, apply a shitload of pressure, and call me to help. Hey, yeah, you. And no, get the clothes off of that one. You see that shrapnel? Yeah, we need to see what's going on. Get the shirt off. Yeah, well, cut them away. Cut them away, goddammit. Let's go. All right, good. Now wipe that blood off. All right, good. Bend your fingers like claws. Make a scratching motion to find puncture wounds. Look, we can't fix it if we can't find it. All right, good. Run your fingers down the torso and across the back. See? Look, there's one. All right, look for any more holes. If there's an entry wound, I need you to check for an exit wound. It's not just the big ones that kill them. It's those little bastards that we don't find. Now wipe them and seal them. Use one of the occlusive dressings. Seal that shit up. I'll drop a 14 gauge in him when you're done. It's not gonna stick if he's all fucking bloody. All right, clean it up first, seal the wound, use that cling wrap and some petroleum gauze. You got a patient for me? Okay, let's see. Good, you got a tourniquet on this chewed up leg. Good job. Nice placement. It's high, tight, bleeding's under control. Okay, good. So after we fix the big bleeds, we do a head to toe. A, B, C. Airway, breathing, circulation. Make sure the airway's open, tilt the head back, lift the chin, make sure they're breathing. Make sure they have a pulse. If they're not breathing and they don't have a pulse, they are dead. All right, that's a wasted tourniquet. Move on. Go! Wait. Hey. No. Assalamu alaikum. No. What are you doing? No. Stop. Put him down. Put him down. I have to check him first. If he's got a bad bleed, he'll die on the way to the hospital. Man, no. Can't you understand me? English? Of course you don't understand me. I guess they'll die on the back of your fucking truck then. God damn it.
Doctor. Mister.
Salam? Is this your kid? Is he yours? Okay, I understand. I know. Let me take a look, okay? All right. I don't like the look in his eyes. It's not much bleeding. I guess that's a good sign. His airway's open. There's char on his lips. He's not breathing. There's no pulse. Sir, you can't understand me either. Fire in the blast. Your boy, he breathed in fire. His airway is scorched. His face is burned. His lips, see?
Mister, finished?
Yeah. Finished. After a day like this, I go back to base. I climb to the roof of our bombed-out space. I listen to prayers from distant minarets. We second-guess decisions and chain-smoke cigarettes. Gunfire in the city flashes a light. War's thunder rolls through the Arabian night. I suppress thoughts of home, family, and friends. My heart can't be with them until the mission here ends. But while I'm here, I am everything. I'm the good and I'm the bad. Who lives and who dies? I'm the god of Baghdad. The fucked up thing in all this sorrow, I got to get up and do it all again tomorrow. Days like this, you know? You start wondering what days like this is doing to you. God.
I'm joined in the studio by David Watkins and the author of God of Baghdad, Phil Trezza. I'd like our audience to understand one thing real off the top. So y'all noticed that 3 times in the play, it broke into verse. I love the almost kind of a rap rhythm, yeah? And so Phil and I were working on the play. And one morning he sends me this draft. And the draft has verse. And I called Phil up. I said, Phil, what am I reading? And Phil said,
I watched Hamilton.
So, the night before he watched Hamilton, and that's why he sent me a play that suddenly broke into verse. So I said, let's lean into it. You know, Phil, if we're going to have 1 section of verse, we need 3. But the play is magical. You wrote it so that you're in a psychiatrist's office, but you're on the battlefield, but you're in your head. But you're in the psychiatrist's office, but you're in your head. And David, I mean, I thought that when you broke into the verse in that play, it lent it such a beautiful, almost mysticism. I mean, how did that feel going from just regular prose to suddenly rhyming?
It definitely had some Hamilton undertones. So congratulations on that. It was one of the moments that I loved the most. At first, it was kind of scary because the seriousness of the dialogue, and then you jump into a rhythmic or rhyme structure. But it was great because the rhymes were different wordly than just the regular talking. So it wasn't like battlefield, someone's dying. It was more poetic and just lovely. So it changed the whole mood of what you were watching. And so just getting into it, it forced me to change into something in my head, more like a dream state.
Yeah, I agree. Phil, 14 years, combat medic, United States Army. You joined when you saw the Twin Towers go down. Take us there.
Yeah, shortly after, because I think I was 16 when it happened. So I kind of tried to weave that to the story here as some of my motivation to join the military. It was really my grandmother that took me to the World Trade Center, and I got to go all the way up to the top. I was with my cousin. I just remember that moment so vividly. And then, of course, on September 11th, it felt real to me. It was a place that I knew, having been from New Jersey and going to New York several times when I was a kid. Our whole generation, everybody that was either in high school or just young folks during that time, I think we all felt a responsibility at that moment. We saw generations before us having to answer that call, that whatever that time period had requested of us. And I think everybody that joined up around that time after September 11th were very special people.
The moment in the play when David is standing and he says, "There's smoke everywhere. I can't see. Are you there? Are you there?" You chose as a playwright to break into verse the description, almost as if regular prose wouldn't have done it. Quickly, could you take us back to that episode, the way you described it to me when we were first talking about the play? Street corner in Baghdad, a truck bomb blew up. Tell us.
Yeah. So I was at what we call a checkpoint in this neighborhood that we had kind of been our area of operation for a while, for several months. So we knew the area very well, and we were at just a static checkpoint. So I'm sitting on the back of a truck, and we're about to go back to base. It's like, the patrol's almost over. What we were doing is almost over. And kind of what I tried to articulate too in the beginning of the play was when you see the big cloud of smoke that goes up, because it did. We're sitting there and we see this huge cloud of smoke go up, and it's so surreal when that happens, because like you see it first and you don't hear anything right away. And so you see the big cloud go up, and if you're at the right place looking at the right time, I mean, it happened right as like where my gaze was, So as the shock wave comes, you see it, and the sound literally rides the shock wave until it gets to you, and then you hear it, and it's nuts. It's hard to even describe. So that moment we get into our trucks, and I already know what the situation's going to be because I know where the explosion went off, and I know that's a very busy area of this neighborhood. And I just remember the truck has a big ramp on the back of it, and so I go down into the truck. I put my aid bag on, and I leave my rifle in there. And I remember telling my buddy Inskeep, who was my squad leader, just get my back because I'm not even taking my rifle because there's no point. I'm going to be too busy. So kind of like when the smoke was clearing, the ramp drops, and I don't really know what to expect because the vehicle has no windows or anything like that unless you're out on the top of the hatch. I think the verse allowed me to kind of, once the ramp dropped and I get out and kind of see what the landscape looked like, that was, I thought, the best way to capture that moment. That the first couple moments of me trying to do the what they call the scene size up.
David, you've done a lot of theater. What was it like for you to know that the first time you said these words on stage, or the first time these words had ever been said? This is a brand new playwright, brand new play. What's it like carrying that banner?
It is extremely heavy and scary. Let me say it again. Scary and heavy, especially when the guy who this is written about is alive and looking right in your face. So there's a lot of pressure of getting it right, and the gruesomeness of it. I put more pressure on me to get it right. And that's why it was very, very adamant for me to get to know Phil, because, with any, this felt like a biopic. Like, he's sitting right here. I know we don't look alike. I'll deal with casting later with that.
Not nearly as handsome.
But I wanted to really be intense on, let me figure out what he was really going through. And so having to read this aloud for the first time in front of who actually wrote it, and then him having to hear this for the first time. And I'm sure, I'm not a playwright, but I write songs, and you hear how you think it should go when you're writing it. Am I right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure you all, Phil already had an idea of what this should be, and then having to live it. So you knew the real and the theatrical approach. So it's a lot of pressure, me thinking, so he already knows how he wants it to go. He's lived through this, and he's sitting right here with his family. So let me make sure, which is why I beeline to, hey, let's go out to lunch, let's talk, just so I can get the vibe and the essence of what Phil was wanting to do at that moment. So a lot of pressure, which is good. I didn't walk into it lightly. I walked into it like, let's turn this into a real thing, because it was a real thing. And so I think just bringing that sincerity to it, I know it helped me out. It was a lot of nights of, thank God for YouTube. There's a lot of, these IED videos and casualty videos. I probably shouldn't have watched as many as I did, but you got to get into the realness of it. So just to appreciate, Phil, on everything that you've written. So yeah, to answer your question, a lot of pressure.
David, to give you props though, during rehearsals, the casts of other plays would stay after their own rehearsals to watch you work this. It was moving for me because Phil means a lot to me as well. And I was just so happy to entrust this in your hands. Phil, last question. You're a playwright now. For people out there who are never going to sit in the audience, how does that resonate with you to be a playwright and to see it? I mean, we got David's side of it, how important it was to him to portray it well. What was it like seeing it portrayed?
It was amazing. And I knew the first reading that I got to sit, and I think it was the first time that Davey actually picked up the script and read it. And as you said, when you're a writer, and I write some music too, I definitely had a cadence in my head and where I thought it was going to go. And I knew right away he was the guy as soon as he read it. Just the cadence in which, like that first read. I think whenever we try to do art, and this is art, right? We want to make people feel something, perhaps that they've never felt before, just something that's not accessible to them in their daily life, but maybe they want to understand it. And I think this play and these types of pieces of art allow people to do that, allow people to live and feel something that maybe they might not have a chance to. At least I hope it did.
David, last question for you. I'll go first. I have a favorite moment in the play, and it is when you are directing the audience, ostensibly Phil's squad members, how to find the small wounds. It's the small ones that we don't find that'll kill them. The intensity for me of watching you work with the audience members and show them how to put on a tourniquet when they're just staring up at you big-eyed, and they're being swept into Phil's world in those moments, and the power of theater, right? Power of live theater. Did you have a favorite moment in that play, favorite passages?
Okay, go with me here. So my favorite part of the entire show is at the very end. There's a God at the end. And I love that part because there's so much language just in that one word. Not only is it God, right? But it's also, look at what I've done. It's a God, what do I have to do next? It's a God of, oh my goodness, what is this therapist going to think of me? What am I going to think of myself? There's so much. And I love that part. It was a release, but it was also an intake of, man, like, I got to do this tomorrow. God, or, I could be blown up myself tomorrow. God. And just understanding the realness of, sometimes that's the only thing you can say is just God. Even reading it at home, when I get to that final part, it's such a finality of, God of a higher being, and also a God of a depression, and also a God of, you made it through that, and a God of, we got to do it again, and a God. It's just so much wrapped into that I always, that's why a lot of times when we did even in rehearsals, getting to that part and just falling and crying, or just, it was such a pass out point. And then for some reason, the director made us bow right after that. I don't understand that. But that,
I'm standing right here.
like,
hard to miss.
Can I get 30 seconds to get myself together? But that last part, outside, the rest is brilliant. Just that God is just a finality of everything you've been through, and then having to see it again and again and again. My hat is always off to you, and just your survival and your family, and, God bless you, man.
God bless you, man. Thank you.
The Mighty Pen Project is a free writing program for military veterans and their families, offered by the Virginia War Memorial Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit. If you'd like to learn more about the Mighty Pen, or just send us your thoughts, email us at mppodcast@vawarmemorial.org, or use the link in the podcast description. And if you're a veteran or a family member of a serviceman or woman listening to this podcast anywhere in America, and you want to learn how to best tell your own powerful stories, you can sign up for one of our Mighty Pen writing workshops on Zoom. If you want to read today's pieces, many more, use the link to go to the Mighty Pen archive. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it. Music for this episode was provided by Jackson Albrecht. And lastly, if you'd like to support the Mighty Pen's efforts to record and preserve these stories of service, adventure, and sacrifice, follow the charitable donation link in the podcast description. I'm David L. Robbins, and I want to thank you for listening to the Mighty Pen podcast. It's an honor.